Hello, my name is Kathryn Kosmides. I'm the founder and CEO of Garbo. Today we're going to be talking about public records in the digital age. Can they save lives? First, I want to start out with a safety warning. The topic we're about to discuss does cover gender-based violence, including sexual assault. So if you feel the need to leave at any moment, please do. Rachel, will you please stand up? Rachel is a domestic violence advocate and is here if you need to talk to anyone during the session before, during, or after. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this conversation. Recently, BuzzFeed News published an article highlighting how a majority of online dating apps enable sex offenders to use their platform. In this piece, they showcase a survey where 31% of female respondents disclosed being sexually assaulted by an online date. 31%. There are roughly 40 million Americans using online dating today, 47.6% of them female. That's about 19 million women. If we take this 31% statistic to the broader population, that's over 5 million women who have been sexually assaulted by an online date. According to the CDC, epidemics occur when an agent and susceptible hosts are present in adequate numbers, and the agent can be effectively conveyed from a source to the susceptible hosts. More specifically, an epidemic may result from factors that increase host exposure or involve introduction through new portals of entry, in this case, the online dating apps themselves. Second, an enhanced mode of transmission so that more susceptible persons are exposed. Previously, an abuser could only talk to one or two individuals simultaneously. Thanks to digital platforms, they can be communicating with dozens of potential victims. And third, a change in the susceptibility of the host response to the agent. Previously, our networks were connected in person, we knew each other, and our whisper networks worked. Today, victims may not know each other, and we have no way of knowing who we're actually meeting. Dating apps have created a digital violence epidemic against women and vulnerable populations, but they are not the only ones. I'm sure many of you read Uber's recent safety report where over 3,000 individuals revealed being sexually assaulted in 2018 alone. From finding love to finding a ride, we're connecting with more strangers than ever before. And while the internet has created a tremendous amount of good, it's also left us open to a ripe opportunity for a global epidemic of violence against women and vulnerable populations. How did this happen? And how do we prevent headlines like these from occurring? In order to end this epidemic, we have to do something dramatic, culture shifting. But first, we have to understand the systems that enable it. Today, we're going to talk about the criminal justice system and public record laws that enable perpetrators to keep perpetuating violence while silencing survivors. We're then going to discuss how we can use the current records and laws to proactively prevent crimes by providing transparent access to information and show that access to public records can, in fact, save lives. Today, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be the victims of sexual assault at some point in their lives. Who are the ones committing these offenses? Thanks to Me Too and other movements, we're likely to know who the victims are of these crimes, but we have very little information on who actually perpetuates this violence. We know that the average rapist has 10 victims by the time they're college age. There aren't a lot of rapists, but rapists rape a lot. Domestic violence follows the same trend where a small number of abusers commit a large number of crimes. We're also finding in recent studies that that rapists commit a large number of other violent acts, including domestic violence. How did we get this system that perpetuates perpetrators? Let's start with the crime funnel. The crime funnel is a visual representation of how a crime makes its way through the justice system. As you can see, less than half of all crimes are reported to the police. Of those reported, less than 1% will end in conviction. How did this happen? I don't know. But it's even worse for gender-based violence and sexual assault, where only 23% of crimes are reported. That means that 3/4 of crimes are never reported. And there's a wide variety of reasons people choose not to report, whether that's fear of retaliation, fear of the police, or just wanting to keep a personal incident private. But those who do report cite preventing the next victim as their #1 reason for reporting. However, we just learned that less than 1% of gender-based violent crimes will end in convictions. Why does the crime funnel exist? There's a ton of reasons, honestly, but it can really be boiled down to 2 main points: an overburdened system and an indifference to hard-to-solve crimes. When it comes to an overburdened system, we tend to think of it from the public defender perspective, but we need to flip this and think of it from the victim's perspective. Right now, we're busy with crimes against society that are victimless, like marijuana offenses and loitering. We have an overburdened system because of these types of offenses. We're busy fighting a war on poor people and crimes against society rather than ending a domestic violence epidemic. And we've tried to solve this problem for centuries using a whisper network. A whisper network is an informal chain of information passed between individuals, usually privately, and between women. And there's been some recent attempts at digital whisper networks, including the Shitty Media Men List and India's Seen and Heard, which has published alleged abuse in India's art world since 2018. The creators of these lists have gone through a lot of scrutiny. The Shitty Media Men List creator was outed and is currently being sued by one of the men on the list. India's Seen and Heard is also currently in court, although the identity of the person behind the account has yet to be revealed. The problem with whisper networks is that you also have to be in the know. You have to know someone who knows someone who knows someone's past behavior. And thanks to our online networks now, we don't tend to know people anymore in that capacity. How are we supposed to stop serial abusers and protect ourselves if we don't know who the offenders are? The current system allows perpetrators to slip through the cracks, and then we obfuscate the records by hiding them behind FOIA requests, paywalls, and other obstacles. Let's talk about the public record problem. Today, public records can broadly be defined as a record required to be maintained and kept, or a record filed in a public office. But depending on the state, access to this information can be heavily, heavily limited. For example, here in California, the California Public Records Act states that, except for explicit exceptions, personal information maintained about an individual may not be disclosed without that person's consent. But public records didn't start with personal information. They started to hold our government accountable to its people. That's why in 1950, the Federal Records Act was the first act in the United States to provide the legal framework for record maintenance and management. But many people thought it didn't go far enough, which is why in 1966, the Freedom of Information Act was passed. The FOIA was enacted to make government agencies' functions more transparent so the American people could hold the government accountable. A lot has happened since then, but most recently, we have the Foia Improvement Act of 2016. This act addressed the proactive disclosures requiring agencies to make available for public inspection in an electronic format any record requested 3 or more times. Public records can be a wide variety of things, from marriage certificates, birth certificates, death certificates, court orders, arrest records, government financial information, and so much more. But the problem is, this information is really hard to find and even harder to use today. And if it is available online, it often costs up to $95 per search to get the information. How are we creating a system that holds perpetrators accountable and makes our government transparent if we cannot find easy access to this information and it takes months to get it and costs a ton of money? The public information that is available today is insanely creepy. How many of you have used Truthfinder, Spokio, or Instant Checkmate? Raise your hand. Not a lot of you. I highly, highly suggest that you do. We're actually going to walk through a little video clip of me running myself through one of these systems. It actually takes about 20 to 30 minutes to use these systems, and we'll see the process. It's only a 2.5-minute clip that I'll talk through. So right here, I'm searching my own name. This is Instant Checkmate. First, it asks if I'm male or female. It doesn't know. And it has a consumer report notice that it can't be used for business purposes, which is understandable. And then it starts with all of these pop-ups. Am I over 40 years old? Do you think I've been charged with a felony? Do I have secret social media accounts? And this is, again, is a 20-minute loading screen right now. And then they say they have my reports. And then guess what? Another loading screen. And they ask even more questions. Do you suspect I have a criminal record? This helps them perform the accuracy of their results, supposedly. Do you suspect I've ever gotten a DUI? Then they run through your social media accounts. Even more loading screens. An alert, right? They contain surprising details provided by users, so anyone can comment on your profile at any time, anything that they would like to. Kathryn's report may contain graphic content, and it's a secure access to this graphic content. Another loading screen. Another button. Another loading screen. Again, a warning, content may be graphic. How many times do we have to hear this? And there's my report. It wants me to pay $35 for the search, but if you wait 20 minutes on that screen, it'll go to only $1. And then there's my mom. It's not even me. That's my mom. But there it does have every phone number I've ever registered, every email address I've ever registered. And then most creepily, well, besides leaving a comment, it has all of my location data, every home address I've ever registered. Today, I cannot vote because I'm afraid that these systems will enable my abuser to see my address and continue stalking me. And then it has sex offender data, which is the easiest data to maintain and have available. And then finally, it ends with a dark web scan, right? So to fearmonger you even more in this process, right? How do they get this information? They get it through public records like marriage records and DMV records. In fact, here in California, DMV makes over $50 million a year selling your personal data. How can the California Public Records Act state that, except for explicit exceptions, personal information maintained about an individual may not be revealed without that person's consent, yet they're buying and selling your personal data every day? How can organizations buy and sell your personal data, but we cannot gain access to the public records that can save our lives? And it's not just public information found in public records. It's OSINT data, or open source intelligence data, that can be found in social media posts, web blogs, newspapers, images, everything. And it creates this digital paper trail of our beliefs and our behaviors. And the way that they're using this information is dangerous, as you just saw, not protective. It can lead to doxing, stalking, and death. Doxing, in case you didn't know, is the publishing of private information, usually with malicious intent. How do I know about doxing? Because 2 years ago, I was doxed by an abusive ex-boyfriend. He published dozens of posts that started ranking #1 on my Google search results. To get these posts removed, it cost between $300 and $3,000. If you go to their legal threats page, it stated Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I didn't know what it was at the time, so I went searching. The CDA says no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. It essentially means that platforms are not responsible for what their users do and say on the platform itself. And that's where I created Garbo. I thought that if these platforms could publish personal information and total lies about someone and ruin lives, why can't we publish public records about these abusers? And that's how Garbo was born. Garbo is a new kind of background check designed for the digital age. We're on a mission to proactively prevent gender-based crimes by providing transparent access to information. We do this by unlocking records that are hidden behind FOIA requests and paywalls and providing them to users for free. We're building a national crime web, the first of its kind, that enables people to search across jurisdictions and find if someone that you're seeing in California has a record in New York and everything in between. Our database contains both OSINT and public information, including orders of protection, court records, arrest records, media reports, and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaints. Second, we allow users to search before the first meeting, which is so crucial nowadays because we're meeting so many strangers. We use the limited information that people might have before that first meeting, like just a first name and phone number or license plate. We then do a reverse lookup on this technology. If the first name registered to that phone number matches what you input, we then provide access to the available reports that we have on that user. As you can see here, there's a Submit Evidence button. Garbo is the first online background check designed to accept submissions of real records and reports that our systems may have missed. That includes police reports, orders of protection, and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaints. We do this through a simple encrypted web form that follows Section 230 rights. So we take all of this information about the perpetrator and automatically publish it to their profile while maintaining the victim's secrecy and identity. Garbo is a new kind of background check designed for the digital age. We believe in providing transparent access to information around gender-based violence, including sexual assault, domestic violence, and sexual harassment. Speaking of sexual harassment, we can revolutionize the way that job interviewees have power over their companies. By knowing before a job interview if an employer has any EEOC complaints against them, you can truly begin to save lives. We want to make sure that everyone is making informed decisions about their safety. Survivors take a big, often dangerous step by coming forward, and they mostly do it to protect the next victim. Why wouldn't we make that a reality? Why wouldn't we create a transparent system that holds the systems and the individuals accountable for their actions by providing transparent access to information? But Garbo is built on broken systems. From the crime funnel where less than 1% of police reports end in convictions, to the records hidden behind FOIA requests and paywalls. In order to actually end this epidemic and make change, we have to change 3 fundamental principles. First, we must redefine public records to be any record filed in a public office from the very top of the crime funnel. And then we must do this while protecting survivors themselves. And these records should be easily accessible and free to access. Second, we have to shift privacy laws. We have to make personal identifying information, like your home address and your email and your phone number, harder to access. We also need to provide transparent access to the information organizations do have on us and how they got that information. Finally, we need to overhaul Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act to ensure internet is designed to protect every individual, including the most marginalized populations. We must hold companies liable for the abuse that occurs on their platform. Until the systems are fixed, Garbo will exist. But together we can end this epidemic. If you would like to volunteer with us or contribute in any way, please visit me afterwards or visit garbo.io. Thank you so much.